Joining me now to discuss the latest in the impeachment trial, as well as the global threat of the coronavirus, author of the new book, Sacred Duty, Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton. Senator, thanks so much for being with us this evening. You know, Chuck Schumer, when he talks about this, being a sham trial after, the Senate made a decision not to call witnesses, what's your take on that?
Good old Chuck, Jeanine. I'll tell you what, from the very beginning, this trial for Chuck Schumer has not been about getting Donald Trump out of the White House. It's been about getting Susan Collins out of the Senate. He's not going to get Donald Trump out of the White House, and he's not going to get Susan Collins out of the Senate, and he's not going to win back the majority, because the American people know that the Democrats in Washington have now wasted 5 months of their time rather than focusing on the people's business.
Okay, and Susan Collins, why?
So Chuck Schumer said from the beginning, he said it in the newspaper just a couple of weeks ago, that this was a win-win situation for him. Either President Trump is removed from office, or he thinks it's bad for Republican senators who are in tough races, like Susan Collins or Cory Gardner or Martha McSally. This is, for Chuck, about winning back the Senate majority, not about removing Donald Trump from the White House. He knew that he never had the votes to do that.
Well, it's so disingenuous, Senator, and I have to tell you, it's very disappointing. I mean, that is the most exclusive club, many would say in the world, but certainly in the country. But, you're all going to have 10 minutes to make your final statements. Are you looking forward to hearing your fellow senators talk for 10 minutes about what they think about this impeachment?
Well, these last 2 weeks have been unusual in more than one way in the United States Senate. One way in particular, though, is that all 100 senators have had to sit silently at their desks. I can tell you, for a lot of those senators, that's a form of shock therapy. So they are itching to get even 10 minutes of time to speak.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. But you're lucky Schiff and Nadler aren't there. There'd be a huge fight to get to that, to get to the camera. But I do want to talk about something serious. You were the first to actually call for a travel ban when you heard about the coronavirus. And of course, the president is now instituting a travel ban. You certainly had exceptions for, Americans who wanted to come back to this country, as long as there were limits, and making sure that everyone who came back was examined. But we now have 8 cases in the United States, the latest in Massachusetts. And one of these people, I believe, had just come back from China. Aren't we quarantining these people?
Yeah, I want to commend the president for decisive action to try to arrest the spread of coronavirus in the United States. I've been following this matter very closely for the last 2 weeks, and earlier this week I sent a letter to the administration, spoke to the president and the vice president multiple times this week, urging them to halt entry into the United States from Chinese nationals or for anyone who has been in China for the last 14 days. As you say, of course, we always take care of American citizens, but if they've been in the proximity of the outbreak, we'll quarantine them for 14 days. If they've been elsewhere in China, then we will monitor them from their home for 14 days as well. But this is one case where we should take seriously the maximum Benjamin Franklin. An ounce of prevention is truly worth a pound of cure.
And do you think that the Chinese government has been honest with us in terms of how, they've identified this virus? And do we even know what it's from?
Absolutely not. The Chinese Communist Party has been lying from the very beginning. It's well documented that the Chinese Communist Party cracked down on doctors who tried to sound the alarm on social media in late December. At the very time, after a month of this virus spreading, that the Chinese Communist Party shared the news with the World Health Organization in late December, they were cracking down on dissent in their own country. This combination of both duplicity and incompetence has proven fatal now for over 300 people. And I want to say the Chinese people are the first and the worst victims of their own government. So our prayers go out to them. We need to work as quickly as possible to find a way to arrest the spread of this virus, and also to develop a vaccine.
Do you think that we will be able to do it in time?
I have high hopes. Some of the world's best scientists and medical researchers work in some of the most amazing laboratories and companies right here in the United States. Our government, now that we've gotten a handle on entries into this country from China, that we're working on tracing and monitoring people who had previously been to China in the last 2 months, needs to start a Manhattan Project level effort to accelerate the discovery of a vaccine for this virus, in part because there are still so many unknowns. And when there are so many unknowns, it is best to err on the side of caution.
Certainly. And, you know, my concern, though, is for people coming through maybe the West Coast, maybe Hawaii, having other stops. But I just want to ask you quickly, because I have about 15 seconds now. Do you think that the Democrats are going to stop, or do you think they're going to continue to try to impeach this president?
I don't think they're ever going to surrender the goal of trying to remove this president from office. I don't know if they'll be able to get through impeachment articles again before November, but after he wins in November, I'm afraid that if they still control the House of Representatives, they'll do it again because they do not accept the fact that he won in 2016 or that he'll win again in 2020.
Senator Tom Cotton, thanks so much for being with us. And my next